It's the Congressional Corner, and we're joined now by Congressman Marc Molinaro, a Republican from New York's 19th District. He's been in office for about 6 months now. Congressman, how are you liking the new position?
It's only been 6 months. It feels like 6 years. I tell people, and I mean this sincerely, it is both as frustrating and fulfilling as I could expect. I mean, this is for a guy who started, grew up on food stamps, but started as a village trustee in Tivoli, New York, 1,300 residents, to now represent 750,000 in the House of Representatives is the highest honor. And so with a lot of challenges facing America and upstate New York, the opportunities are great. We've hit the ground running. And if you're listening and you live out in the 19th Congressional District, which is 11 counties from Massachusetts to Ithaca, New York, we want to be your conduit. I tell people all the time, the folks who work with me, I say they don't work for me, they work with me. Our only question is how can we help you? And so if you're out there and you want to you have a particular federal concern or even some other issue, reach out to our office in Catskill or in Binghamton. We want to be helpful to you. Of course, you could always reach out to us here in Washington, D.C. and visit us online.
Well, let me follow up about the frustration you mentioned. You had been a state lawmaker, then you ran a county. Now you're one of 435. Do you find it takes longer to get things done in that setup?
Yes. I mean, I went from managing a $550 million municipal corporation, 1,800 county employees, and when I said things, they generally got done. This takes a different part of your brain and a different part of a different skill set that I do have, and I appreciate you at least referencing it. It's not to sound self-interested, but I spent 6 years as a state legislator, served as the assistant minority leader. This is about building coalitions, relationships, and advocating. And the work that goes on in Washington, D.C. Takes more time. But the founders expected that. It should take more time. It should require more coalition building. And as I joke often, I love my wife, and I'm pretty sure she loves me, but we don't agree on much things throughout the day. And so the fact that there are 434 other members of Congress that you have to work with, no one should expect we all agree quickly on most things. But it's that kind of give and take, and we saw it last week. It's that give and take out of a bipartisan government. By default or design, America has elected a bipartisan government. It requires us to set aside some of the vitriol and some of the anger that often infects our politics and work together. And I believe that we can, and I believe that we've established the framework for achieving that.
It's divided government right now. What grade would you give the House majority so far, and what grade would you give yourself?
Well, I'm not going to do that one.
Oh, why not?
Because I don't like it. I've often said this. I don't like to boil much things down into single letters or even single words. Here's what I think. I think the House majority is sending a powerful message that Americans, their tax dollars, and the challenges we face need to be listened to by the federal government. At the same time, and again, I think we saw this over the course of the last 100 days, but culminating last week, we also have shown a willingness and the capacity to negotiate across party lines and build a coalition, generally center, and in this case, center-right, a coalition to deliver results. I think that's good, and we're progressing in the right way. As far as the work I'm doing, we hit the ground running, and I kind of alluded to it. I was a village mayor for 12 years. I learned all the lessons you need to know about public service at that level of government. You need to be everything to most people. I'm trying to be the mayor of the 19th Congressional District, responsive to the people we represent, and very clear that we're not going to agree on all things, but it's my job to listen. And despite talking to you quite often and a lot, I do a lot of listening. I spend a lot of time trying to understand how people come to the conclusions they come to, what data information they use, what truth they believe, and then try to distill that. And what I would tell people, whether it was in the state legislature or here or any legislature, very few things in life get boiled down to a red or green button. Very few complex issues can be boiled down to a yes or no vote. However, that's the way it works in Congress. And so I know I'll be judged on the yeses or nos, but I think you should also be judged by how you come to that conclusion, whether or not you're respectful to people who might think differently than you do. And then at the same time, what are you doing at home? Are you engaged in the community? I believe we are. I believe we're making good progress in representing folks, and we strive to be better every day.
Do you have an example of a time since you've been in Congress that listening to constituents and doing town halls has changed your mind on an issue or a way you would have voted?
That's a fine question. I would say not specifically yet. I think that it has tempered. There are some conversations here. I'm talking to you from Washington that you can get wrapped up in the rhetoric, and I will say that my district highly suggests and expects that I stick to principle, but that I'm respectful. And I think that I can tell you that over the course of the 6 months, I've thought very carefully about how it is I want to present a message. In the debt ceiling negotiation, I'll say that I would go to a town hall meeting in let's say Shenango County, and people were like, Pass a clean debt ceiling. Pass a clean debt ceiling. And then I go to three others, and they say, we have to bend spending. We have to bend spending. I've synthesized that, and I made very clear to my colleagues, and by the way, pushed for a bipartisan solution and agreement, and we got it. And the bipartisan solution was bend the rate of spending, don't default on America's debt, and be respectful to both those looking for work and those who are supported by SNAP and public benefits, and create something that is compassionate but also effective, and frankly, that comes out of listening. We had a roundtable the other day about broadband. In fact, I think a reporter asked me something like, well, all I heard were all these providers complaining and saying what they couldn't do. Do you think that's successful? That's a successful roundtable? And I thought, well, what would be successful? They all get here and say how wonderful things are? I listened. And in fact, what I often do, said to them, give me the 5 things that you would take on in order to make expanding broadband access to rural communities more effective. And they almost all focused on regulation, access to poles and utilities, and the processes that New York and Washington put in place that make it difficult. And then they said the data that the federal government uses often is so delayed and so outdated that by the time they get around to doing the work with the federal dollars, the reality on the ground has changed. So real-time adjustments. I listened to that, and we're going to synthesize it into real action as we consider broadband and high-speed internet access in the Farm Bill.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes left in this segment, but let me follow up on that. I was speaking with Senator Peter Welch of Vermont about the same issue not long ago. He just held a hearing on expanding broadband to rural areas. In about a minute or two, how far out are we from getting every American on high-speed wired internet access who wants it?
Much further than we should be, and it's mostly regulatory. It's not failure of dollars. We have the dollars. What the industry and providers need is reform at the public utility level, in particular in the state of New York, access and streamlining the use of public utility poles, and then alternative technology, cell, radio frequency, and physical broadband. All needs the process to consider and apply and approve needs to be quicker, and it needs to be more succinct and efficient, which will drive down cost, ensure greater accessibility, reliability, and affordability of high-speed internet.
And you think we should be looking at this as effectively the way we look at other utilities?
Indeed. The only difference is, in this case, we are going to continue to rely on the competitive nature of our economy, meaning private investment and partnering with public dollars is likely the best approach, because there needs to be a market-driven incentive to provide greater affordability, reliability, redundancy, and speed. And if you eliminate that, it just becomes one more public infrastructure that, frankly, will always be a little bit behind the technology. So public-private partnership is the best way to go here, but streamlining the process and the permitting is necessary in order to move to those last few homes all across the country.
Congressman Marc Molinaro is a first-term Republican from New York's 19th District. And when we come back the next time, let's go back and talk more about the debt ceiling.